All right.
It's going.
Let's get this started. Fine.
No.
Anyways, welcome to second shift. We are here interviewing everyone in the strength lab, human performance lab. I have the pleasure of working here. It's been a pleasure. So anyone who has questions, shoot away. Anyone want to start introducing themselves? We'll go to my left with Megan.
All right, Megan, you're up.
Start introducing.
Hey everyone, my name is Megan. I'm the assistant lab director of the Human Performance Lab.
I'm Cameron. I'm almost done. Got another semester left in the Human Performance Lab. What's up, everybody? I'm Sal. I'm going to be finishing up my thesis here. That's all I have left. See me around next semester. In addition to that, I'll be around in the spring, hopefully teaching some 300 level courses. Maybe you might take something with me or tell some friends. I don't know.
We'll just have you guys go.
What's up, guys? My name is David. I'm a grad student here. Gonna be finishing up in the summer. It's been a good 3 years or so. Yeah, so it's a good program to be in here. Human performance.
Hey guys, I'm Ryan, alumni, graduated a couple years ago, but I still hang out with these guys, and I was here one day, they're like, hey, come join us, so I said, okay, so I'm here.
How's it going, guys? My name is Philip. Also, we're all here in the Human Performance Lab. We all do what we like to do, make people bigger, faster, stronger, no matter how old or what type of athlete. So shoot away if you have any questions. I'm going to give it back to Whit.
Can I introduce myself?
Oh, never mind.
No.
But you already know this guy, so.
You already knows me. I'm Albert. I teach a class here. I like to think of myself as coach. So if you refer to me as coach, I'm totally fine with it. And that's it. If you want to help develop speed, I probably can direct you to somebody.
You sound so excited right now.
I'm stoked on this, dude.
Yeah,
Are you kidding me?
I know a guy that does speed too.
All right, it's on you guys
He's
now.
got a big F on his hat right now. White hat.
This guy. Oh. All right, so just have a discussion. Just talk about yourselves a little bit. I think that's really the point of it. I didn't get a chance to bring my class in here, but I really want them to know who you guys are and what you do. That's so we'll just do it in reverse order. Mm-hmm. So Brian, if you want to talk about what you did.
Here?
Yeah, what you did. What was your thesis and
so,
your experience at Fullerton?
Yeah, so I kind of mixed and matched, instead of going in one direction of like strength conditioning or biomechanics, I kind of mixed and matched everything between exercise phys, biomechanics, coaching stuff, and then my master's thesis was the metabolic demands of heavy metal drumming. I'm a drummer, so I was really interested in seeing what happens to the body while it's going, while the guys are playing. So we got some drummers down here, set them up in the lab, and then hooked them up to a metabolic cart and just ran it to see what happened. Cool stuff happened, and looking to get that published pretty soon.
Well, before you go on, we got our first question from our first audience member.
Oh, what is this?
Please ask me, how is your advisor?
That's a great question.
Great question.
I think lab director should probably answer that.
Yeah, we'll start with Whit.
Lab director should maybe answer that.
Most common, right? Hands down. The best advisor. I think that speaks for everyone, right? Best advisor. He's currently being awarded at the end of the semester at graduation in end of May. Marshall Brown.
Marshall Brown!
Anyone else want to talk about how great our advisor is?
Sure, I'll talk a little bit.
Oh, you got a lot of stories.
Yeah, so, well, Dr. Brown, who I first known him as President, Mr. President, when he was my 351 instructor, he was the president of the Southwest ACSM chapter at the time. And then I knew him as past president, and then as advisor, and then now as Marshall Brown. But aside from all that, he's definitely been someone who's helped me out and gave me many opportunities. So I don't know if you guys didn't know me, but I tell stories about myself constantly in the lab here to my colleagues.
What?
And I wasn't necessarily the best undergrad kid, let's just say that. So if you are listening here and you think that you know, for whatever reason, finally started shaping up and you're like, man, I really want to dive into academics, or I really want to dive into a career, but my grades don't show it, or my past didn't show it, it really doesn't matter. And the point is that you can make anything you want out of yourself. And I was given that opportunity, and a lot of people here were given that opportunity. And Dr. Brown definitely helped me out with that and pushed me towards it. Anyone else?
I think we'll all probably field it at one point. So we'll start. We'll go with Philip.
Can you see me?
Popcorn.
Yeah.
You know what, I might have to get off because I think I'm here.
Just mute it.
It's not that easy. Anyways, so I have nothing but the best things to say about Dr. Brown. He's just one of those people that are there for the students and nobody else. That's what drives him, and you couldn't ask for somebody better to be your advisor. Whatever you need, he's there to support you. He's there to kick you in the butt to make sure you're moving. And he's big on deadlines. And without that, you don't have. I can't even explain it. I mean, somebody like that is super important in life, especially when it comes to academics, because it keeps you on track. So I always want to say thank you. So thanks, Dr. Brown. Appreciate it.
Where's Megan? Megan's next. What is this? Huh?
It's on
Yeah.
you.
Oh.
Yeah, it's on you.
Okay. Well, yeah, Dr. Brown is the greatest. Everyone knows that. But what he does, he brings
I don't think he was fishing for compliments either. He was just giving his
brings
own.
the community together, and he's made all the grad students more than a team. Like we always say, we're more than a team, we're family. But that's what I really like about this program, and what Dr. Brown has helped all of us do is, work together. We all help each other. We do everything together. But he just helps bring all of us together to do what we're interested in. He's always there to look out for everyone, myself, and everyone in here.
The students are definitely his priority. I get to hear it from him every day, and how much he cares about every single one of us. And so I'm glad that I decided to come to do my graduate program and work with Dr. Brown.
Cool, I figured it out, guys, so whoever's talking will be able to focus on. All right, man. Has everyone gone? David gets to go.
Yeah.
You're gone, dude.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Dr. Brown, he's been a great advisor to me. Pretty much everybody else already said it. He expects a lot from you because of all the stuff he's done. If you look around, if you come to the lab, all the posters around the lab, that shows you how dedicated he is to research, and not just research, but to students. He wants everybody to succeed. That's why the Human Performance Lab and CSP #1 in the West, #1 in the West.
You're the best.
#1 period.
Yeah, there you go.
#1 period. That's why it's him, and then his dedication, him trying to drive people to become the best that they are. And if you slack off with him, he'll let it go. I'm just saying. So you just got to be on top of your task. He wants you to be doing what the best you can.
And so I think the best part about this is how it definitely, I could talk on behalf of all the instructors in here. So we do have a lot of people that are teaching some activity courses, is that it trickles down the way. So we do expect a lot of our students, but it's only because we care about them. So even though we teach fitness walking, physical conditioning, resistance training, cardio kickboxing, anything of these sorts, we try to make sure that they learn at least one thing that will change their life. Or if not, at least something that will help them impact a family member. So we all have family members. I know I have family members that have had heart attacks, diabetes, high blood pressure, all these different health-related issues where it really comes down to, as long as they exercise and exercise enough, that they're going to be living a better lifestyle. And for us, we really demand a lot from our students because we want to make sure that we teach them something.
Do I get to go?
Yeah, we just got another question.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. So.
Ooh, good question.
Yeah. Are all of you presenting your research at a conference, and how is the timeline for research?
Depends on the advisor. Our advisor.
For the most part, almost all of us in here are presenting research. Our first up-and-coming research is at ACSM in Boston, so we have Cameron. So Cameron.
so Cameron and.
Who's here is the only one going to Boston. We do have a couple of other grad students who are going to be presenting data, along with Dr. Brown, who's attending Boston also. And then in July, the first week of July, the majority of us in here also, along with other grad students, are also going to be presenting research out there. As far as the timeline for research.
Yeah, timeline really depends. Yeah. Cameron can talk about his study and Phil can talk about their study.
Well, we got our poster abstracts done. Well, the conference isn't until the end of this month, and then overlapping months. So we got our abstracts done about 2.5 months ago, and just a couple weeks ago we got confirmation that they got accepted. So we've been ready for this conference a couple months out in ahead, and then for the NSCA New Orleans conference, we got that stuff squared away pretty early on too. We got our abstracts done. Yeah. Couple months ago, and then we've got confirmations of when more stuff is going. So the expectation is again by Dr. Brown getting that stuff in early. We get it done, and we make sure we show up.
Yeah.
No matter how many emails we have to send.
I'm usually the one that sends out the emails for deadlines. So Dr. Brown will tell me the deadline. I send it out to all the other grad students, and they need to send their first draft to Dr. Brown in for the next 5 days. Then we usually get those all sent away to whatever conference we're sending them to, and then months after we get them accepted. The majority of us, we all get ours accepted.
So if I can talk really quick about the deadline.
Let me see who you're.
Timelines for. I think they want to know timelines for research as far as
how long
how
each
long
study
research.
goes.
So
about.
I think it really varies on each person, right? Depending
Each
on
study,
how many days the study is, how many participants they need, and even after we defend our thesis and we're done, sometimes to publish in journals we need even more subjects. So Phil, if you want to go ahead and talk about how timeline for your research works.
So timeline for my research. So finishing my thesis, I finished my thesis a couple weeks ago. I was collecting data. I collected a total of how many did I get? 20 people, 23 people. 23 people took me about 10 months to collect. I had 10 months to collect.
I want to talk about mine then after.
And there was 3 visits, 2 hours each visit. So it took a long time, and I had a special population that I was looking at. So going back to what Sal was talking about, we want to affect people's lives. So I'm looking at blood pressure, and I'm looking at people with prehypertensive numbers for their blood pressure, things that can affect them. Anyways, so timelines are super important. They can vary. So, like Whitney was saying, somebody can have a 2-visit study that only takes 15 minutes. Somebody can have a 2-hour visit, like mine. Some have had 5-6 hour visits. Depending on how you design your research is going to be how long it's going to take you to participate or complete some research for yourself. You don't want to kill yourself, but if you're really passionate about doing something, it doesn't matter how long it's going to take. It's going to be done because you want it to be done. And as far as timelines for abstracts and things like that, that's going to depend on your advisor. And our advisor, like we said, he's top notch and he expects a lot of us.
Kiss ass.
So we have to definitely be on time.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit on that one, then go on to the next question.
Yeah.
So as far as your timeline for research, like Phil talked about, it can depend on your study. So I have an independent study that I'm working on. It's a 1-visit study, and then we also have other studies, like another one of our grad students who has a 6-week training study. So just depending on the methodologies of the study, on how you set it up, really is also going to dictate the timeline for it, in addition to what kind of population you're trying to affect. And so we have another question here about, with so many students looking to become strength and conditioning coaches, or whatever, what kind of advice would we give them as far as moving forward? I'd say the first thing is being humble, making sure that as I started to get more and more education, I really started to understand that I don't know a lot. I don't know everything.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, we just know, we understand some things. We have some, a couple methodologies down and some theories. But even then, things can change, and things are always changing. So just being humble with, you're not going to go into a gym and just start telling people, oh, you're doing that wrong, or you're doing that wrong. There's so many other variables that you really need to account for before you just start, saying, I'm the king personal trainer person, or I'm the king strength and conditioning person, or I'm the king, professor, individual. So you just have to really look at the literature, look what's out there, and then even then, look at what the methodologies are, look at the results, and then interpret that for yourself. Everything is going to be different according to how that's set up. And just kind of like looking back at the timeline of research question, everything like Megan, briefly talked about, everything is done ahead of time. So our posters and our research that we submitted that we're going to be presenting in the summer was already finished, done collecting by the beginning of this year. So same thing with literature that's out there. All the research that you look online on PubMed, you're going to start seeing that this stuff was researched probably a year, if not more, prior to when it's published. So everything's always consistently changing, always new things coming out.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and send this one over to Megan and Cameron so they can talk about the question.
Yeah, so we got a research follow-up question asking if we're restricted just on the academic calendar.
It coincides with it a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. What we do for research, we have to get our study approved by the IRB, and that will last 1 year. So we're collecting, throughout the academic year, so spring semester, throughout the summer, fall semester, and winter break. So we're nonstop collecting data. That's basically how we run our lab.
This is just one section. This is just data collection. So before you even collect data, right, you get into grad school, you've got to take stats and research methods before you could even start your thesis or your research. And in research methods, you basically develop the first 3 chapters of your thesis or your study, right? Because you want your master's degree, just doing research and your thesis, those are like 2 different things. So if you're trying to finish a thesis, then you have to take research methods, finish that. That's a semester long, and then you can start your data collection, and then depending on your study design, that's where it varies. Because however long data collection takes, right, then you have to run stats, put out the results, and then interpretation of those, and the actual writing part can take people various lengths of time, depending on what you found in your results and how much drive you have to write. Yeah.
And then just to kind of follow up on that, following with the academic year schedule, I proposed last summer that I honestly didn't even start collecting until August, till school started, because no students are around, and a lot of us are going on vacations and trips. And then my collection went right into winter break. I got to collect maybe the first week or so of winter break, and then everyone was gone again because they went home for the holidays. I went home, so I didn't get to start collecting my last set of subjects until the first week of school. And when that first week of school started, I got everyone in those first 2 weeks. So it's definitely dependent too on finding people to come participate in those studies. So, I could have been done sooner, but I had all those breaks in between, so it just depends.
One thing for sure is your commitment to do your research will never change. It will be 100%. You must be committed. Your schedule has to be manipulated, changed so that you can accommodate your subject. So that's one thing that you always have to keep in mind when you're going. When you're talking about collecting data, timelines. I mean, it's your schedule is just to accommodate your research and your participants. So there's some more questions.
Yeah.
You want to talk about your research that you did?
Yeah, so one of the questions was, we know what Dave's doing, we know what Cameron's doing, and people want to know what everybody else is doing. So I'm still collecting data to publish on the hypotensive effects of resistance training exercise, specifically looking at the upper versus lower body exercises. So we're talking about the drop in blood pressure following exercise, which is seen following aerobic exercise, but not too well investigated following resistance training. And I'm also looking at two different groups. I'm looking at people with normal blood pressure, and I'm looking at people with pre-hypertensive, so slightly elevated blood pressure. So we're still collecting on that, so we're going to try and get that published later on this year.
So my research was looking at, I had just finished, I just defended a couple weeks ago, and now I'm in the middle of working on the formatting to publish my thesis in an actual journal. But my research was looking at hex bar deadlift versus back squat, post-activation potentiation on vertical jump. So we just wanted to see if lots of research has been done showing the back squat increasing vertical jump. So I wanted to see if there was more of a biomechanical advantage using a hex bar deadlift using vertical jump. And I'm sure, you know, because it's in publication process, I don't think I can go too in-depth about it, so you'll have to wait for the paper. But yeah, that was my research. I really love doing deadlifts, and so now I get to work on formatting of it. So I'm really excited to publish my first paper in the journal.
All right, we'll go to Megan. She's going to tell you about what her perspective.
Yeah, so I'm in research methods right now, so I've been developing my thesis, but before I was in research methods, I was doing some other research, just independent study. I was looking at skateboarders. So my first study was looking at single leg balance in skateboarders, and then my second study was looking at skateboarders versus non-skateboarders. I was looking at the balance between those two. But for my thesis, I'll be looking at resisted sprinting or sled towing. I'll be doing a PAP study, post-activation potentiation, looking at the optimal rest period for sled towing in field athletes. So I'll be looking for anyone who plays field sports. We'll probably be recruiting over summer for the beginning of fall semester. But right now I'm just going through that process of doing the first 3 chapters of my thesis, and then my plan is to propose by the end of this month, and then pilot over the summer and just fix out what I'll be doing for that.
Sal?
Sure. So I'll go next. Again, my name is Sal. I have currently collected a couple participants for a difference in shoe or footwear force production study. So I'm looking at, if you guys ever notice how people wear different shoes when they lift, we have 3 different types of shoes. We got a weightlifting shoe, so a heel lift, heel supported footwear. We have barefoot, and then we're also looking at a normal cross-training type of shoe. So we're looking at these 3 different types of, sorry, pizza just got here, so we're stuck. We're looking at 3 different types of footwear and the differences in force production with all of them. So that's one of my studies, and my thesis is actually going to be something that I'll be collecting, and hopefully I can recruit some of you guys, some of the audience here. As long as you're resistance trained, either male or female, between the ages of 19 and 29. What we're going to look at is jump squats, so a short duration, high intensity type of exercise. We're going to go 5 sets of 10, and we're going to measure your blood glucose levels. So mine's going to be a little bit performance and a little bit of making sure that we actually affect the change in blood sugar. So being able to actually utilize a very short duration, high intensity type of exercise to get some profound effects with controlling blood sugar.
So we'll go on to the next one. I don't know if anyone's asked.
Yeah, Brian has a really cool
I went
study.
first.
Yeah.
He still just said.
Metabolic demands of
That was an old study. I'm not doing anything now.
Heavy metal drumming.
Yeah. Anyone have any other questions? We still got plenty of time for questions.
So much time.
Maybe we can go back to that the career question.
Yeah.
Go back to that
Just
career-
like we
Okay.
have
It's
to
weird.
talk.
Yeah, we can go back to the career question. So the strength and conditioning question, either you want to be a strength and conditioning coach, a personal trainer, or a professor, something along those lines. It's really looking more towards getting people with legitimate certifications. So a lot of the strength and conditioning coaches at the NCAA level are now required to have CSCSs, where before they didn't really need to. I don't have any carrots at the moment, but we do have cheese pizza, so I'm stoked on that. But anyways, that's from one of our audience members. As far as for career-wise, anyone else want to talk about with different types of careers that you can probably go into? Besides,
I think that, actually, should we go to the next one?
There's another one?
Yeah,
Yes.
was there anything that you wish someone told you before you started grad school, or were there any
Good question.
unexpected surprises?
Unexpected surprises.
I don't know, someone else want to take them? Stats was definitely an unexpected surprise.
Yeah,
I think I
that's
thought I was
good
done with stats after undergrad, but
Sure, I'll
honestly, Dr. Wilson was really helpful when it came to stats. You know, definitely not anyone. There's a couple students who excel in stats, but it was really a struggle for a lot of us. But she definitely made it a lot easier, even though we still struggle when we're doing our research. But I think already being here at Cal State Fullerton and knowing the professors, there weren't as many surprises. I actually wasn't expecting myself to be so busy, especially the first semester of grad school. I felt like I was like drowning the whole time, and I was trying to like get my footing to like understand how to juggle all of this. But then it gets easier as semesters progress. You just got to be prepared to work. You got to be ready to put in those long hours. But when you find something that you love, it doesn't feel like work. So a lot of us like being here for hours and hours of the day, but we have fun with what we're doing. We love what we're doing. We found passion in what we're doing. So you said you wanted to talk a little bit about career-wise?
Yeah, so career-wise. Albert, did you want to talk?
Sure. In terms of career?
Yeah. And then I'll go off after you.
Okay, I guess the advice I would give anybody who's going to get into this field is you've got to, it's about people. Like a lot of things that we do is we just sort of forget it. We get really involved in the books and the book learning, but I think some of you witnessed yesterday, I had some friends come in and I ended up getting work just because I was kind of telling them about the lab and what we've been up to and what we're investigating. And it wasn't because I know anything more than anybody else, but I was, people don't mind me so much and they don't think I'm a terrible person. So a lot of it will be just because you are a good person. It's not because you know more than anybody, because we have a lot of people that we interact with every day that know a bunch. They simply know a lot. But it ultimately comes down to, do I get along with this person? Am I going to work well with that person? And I think you have to work with some people that you're pissed off at. And I think that's one of the things that we do here really well. We can rub each other the wrong way, and if you're putting in as many hours as many of these grad students put in, you're going to get in arguments, and you're going to have your issues, and you have to work past them because you can't sit around and pout and feel bad for yourself or David, but you have to get stuff accomplished, and if you don't, you're going to get a swift kick in the butt. And then we've already gone over that several times, but I think that's what you need to know is, particularly here in this lab, we're a team, we're family, we get after it, and we're expected to do a lot of stuff. And even when you're mad at each other, you got to get stuff handled. So that's one of the things. I mean, that was really a surprise to me. I think the way you guys work really well together, even when you're mad at me. When you're mad at each other. So you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was going to talk more about career choices. So strength and conditioning is a huge field. It's going to continue to grow. It's going to be in the high school level, and who knows, junior high potentially. Who knows? We don't know. But it's going to continue to grow. And the need for education, the need for certification is super important. For me, career-wise, I'm not like everybody else in here. I don't want to be a strength coach. However, I'm actually working in 2 hospitals as a exercise physiologist in the cardiac rehab program. And I've been actually focusing a lot on doing strength and conditioning with some of my older adults. So in cardiac rehab, I have patients that have had heart attacks. I've had patients that have had valve replacements, stents. They have heart failure. They have a reduced work capacity to do any type of exercise. Not only is cardiovascular training important for them, but strength training is important for them too. The development of power, which is something that we definitely talk about with athletes in the general population, is super important with the older adults. How's that person going to be able to cross the street within 15 seconds at the stoplight, right? How am I going to be able to get somebody stronger so that they can make sure that they can do their daily lives, get their daily activities of living, getting out of bed without a walker and assisted device, being able to go upstairs, basic things like that. So I've been working with other exercise physiologists at my work at St. Jude Medical Center, where one of the main exercise physiologists, she's been there for 16 or 17 years, and she's a graduate of Cal State Fullerton, master's student. So we've been working together, and we've actually been potentially trying to design a circuit training program with resistance training as well as with cardiovascular equipment. So
we should talk.
Okay.
Because going off of what Phil's saying, I'm also at St. Jude's rehab, or I'm at St. Jude's, but I'm at the rehab facility up in Brea, and we do a similar sort of thing where we're working with older patients. A lot of people have different physical ailments going on. Mainly what we work with now is knee arthritis stuff, and ages from super young to a little older. But yeah, same sort of thing. Like, how are they going to get across the street? Building up their strength, building up a little bit of aerobic capacity, you getting it back up. Even with the knee problems, there's still plenty that they can do that they don't realize. And that's kind of where we come in. So, yeah, same kind of lines. Like, now that I've graduated, I'm kind of doing a bunch of different things right now, and that's just one of them. I am doing some strength conditioning work, some fitness stuff, and then also with that rehab facility there. So there's a lot of different things you could do other than strength conditioning. There's also biomechanics standpoint.
I think one thing definitely that can be said.
Yeah.
You can mix in strength and conditioning to anything.
Anything. Oh yeah.
To anything.
Because it's applicable across the board.
Don't think that if I don't get in as a strength coach somewhere, I can't apply what I've learned here in some other field.
Right.
Think outside of the box. Make sure that you are constantly thinking.
I think that's the biggest thing there.
Find one or make an opportunity for yourself.
Yeah.
Be that person that is going to be out there and promote yourself. Promote this school. Show them why this is the best program in the West, in the nation.
Definitely think outside the box. That's the hugest thing, because now we're going to start getting flooded with all sorts of strength conditioning coaches. Like, oh, I can specialize in this and this and this and this sport. And I'm like, well, what makes you different than the other two people that are applying for the same position? Think outside the box. Put yourself out there. Start talking to people. Get to know different people in different locations, and work with different athletes. Have an open mind about what's going on, and then kind of play off your own strengths too, and that'll kind of bring yourself into that spotlight to help highlight again your strengths and help you kind of get where you want.
So going off of his, thinking outside the box, this next question goes into how important do you think it is to further your education within the field so you feel like your bachelor's is enough?
They see it.
Yeah, okay.
So the scrolls across the bottom, yeah.
Okay, that's good.
For me, I wanted to pursue my master's because I didn't feel like I knew enough as a bachelor's. And I feel that having a master's makes you more competitive in our field because there are so many people going into kinesiology alone. So I think it just gives you that one up to help you think outside the box. But then you also learn that you think you learned everything in your bachelor's field, but then you go into the master's program and you're like, I have so much more to learn. And you get to really get into kinesiology. In your undergrad, your bachelor's, you kind of take little touches of every class, but when you take your master's program, you kind of dive into each class: exercise physiology, biomechanics, sports psychology. They really take you more in depth into each field. So I definitely think that pursuing master's getting more education is definitely a good thing. I never even saw a master's in my I wouldn't change that route any other form. I would always take my master's route no matter what.
Can I take this next question?
Which one's up?
Have any of you been able to work full time and go to grad school?
It's a reality for some people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is a
some
reality.
people have to.
Yeah, but there's a trade-off, you know, and it's kind of unique to each person because we all have different goals at the end of the day. Some of us are more strength coach oriented, right? And some of the people that are more strength coach oriented, they're only on campus, you know, 2 days a week for a few hours, but then they spend a lot of the time at the strength and conditioning facility that they work at. And that's time well spent if you're going to be a strength coach, right?
All about experience. Yeah.
It's all about experience. But for myself, I'm into the research part, so the best place that I could spend here is here in the lab, where all the research is going on, spending my 12-hour days here, and I couldn't do that with a full-time job, right? So I'm teaching associate here, and that helps out a little bit, but it's kind of unique to each person. But you want to spend the most time you can that's going to further you and your goals, right? Your ass is not big enough to ride in 2 saddles, so you got to pick one direction, right? And you gotta do what's best for you. If you're working like a full-time job that's not related to the field, you need to try to get something that's related to the field or related to your end goal, because that's going to make the most out of your graduate career, and that's going to put you ahead the farthest.
Just to kind of piggyback off of that. When I first started grad school program, I was doing working in a physical therapy office, and then I also got a position with Athletic Republic, working at the high school with the soccer team and the volleyball team. And then I was also on team. So I was just kind of all over the place. And then I decided that I really wanted to be involved in the lab. I wanted to be lab director. So I took a step back. I actually left my position at that physical therapy office, and then I devoted all my time here. And the following few months later, I became lab director. And I've just been involved in very many different opportunities, you know, working with the Anaheim Ducks, the LA Kings, testing them when they came here, working just on a lot of different things, just being super involved. So grad school is what you make it. And yeah, like they said, it's a reality for some students that they have to do full-time and work. But I think that at the end of the day, when you want something, you're going to do what you need to do to get there.
We go with that question, or you want to?
David, you want to take it?
Check which one?
The grad school. Can you do that full time or?
Biggest challenge?
Oh, the biggest challenge? Oh,
What's your biggest
oh,
challenge?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Huh. All right, so next question is,
They
what
did,
is
so.
one of your guys' biggest challenges you had to overcome as either an undergrad or a graduate student?
Jumping?
Pretty much. Yeah, I could honestly say. So cool. Yeah.
Cold-blooded.
I can honestly say that coming to Fullerton was, just in general for grad school, was probably like the most difficult time ever for me because, all right, first off, I started off in academic probation because of stats class.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
It happens.
It happens. It just gotta keep fighting through it.
Yeah.
So it was a constant struggle to keep going. I was smart enough. I just made stupid mistakes on tests and stuff like that. But it happens. Same thing happens in undergrad. Just gotta keep going forward. But once I started my thesis, or once I was near the end, I can say that almost dying kind of was the biggest hurdle. So yeah, that's a little in there. But all it is just gotta be perseverant, keep going, keep grinding. That's
Yeah,
the main
stay
thing.
focused, and then recognize that there will be some speed bumps, and just go right through it.
if you can, or walk through it slowly. Get you a wheelchair, have someone push you.
I think that's the biggest part too. Is like, and like everybody always says, like we're a family over here. And so, like, if something happens and someone needs help, there's always someone willing to help right then and there. And so that's the biggest part. That's going back to the question earlier about which one thing I would have known coming into the program was to come and hang out here more often. Because when I first started, I was always just kind of off doing my own thing. I didn't really know that this was here. Like, I think I did, but I was just like, oh, I'll go check it out later, you know. But, you know, after a couple of years, I started coming out and making friends with everybody and then just kind of really getting that family vibe, which is cool. Because being away, I'm from Bakersfield up north-ish. And so I didn't really have a lot of family around here, so it's kind of cool making the friends, you know, making those connections. Yeah.
Yeah, I can honestly say that everybody in this room has like helped me with the healing process, helped me with my thesis, getting back on my feet. So you just gotta surround yourself with good people, that have like-minded people that'll be there for you, that'll push you, motivate you, all that type of stuff. And you'll get through it.
I think another thing is that's a challenge, is just putting yourself out there. It seems like there's, you know, a world distance between the undergrad and the graduate student, right? And I remember me just talking to one of the former grad students, Tony Ciccone, like, that guy knew his stuff. He was super smart, and it felt like he was so far ahead of me from where I was. And right now, Sal and everyone in this room were almost in the same position as graduate students. And we all overcame that gap somehow. And I think it's how we put ourselves out there. And we really asked people for help. We showed them interest, right? And sometimes it's hard to do that. Sometimes it's intimidating to talk to people. But you just got to put yourself out there. Show that you're good-hearted in nature. Show that you have an interest and a passion. And that'll get you far. That'll help you overcome some of the, you know, the blocks that people face on that journey to close that gap.
Yeah, I agree with that. I definitely want to say that I didn't get to answer that last question about, you know, what were some things that you wish you heard prior to getting into grad school. But some things that I was able to hear, just like Cameron was talking about, is just getting involved, is making sure that you get involved as much as you can. You know, being really being able to be okay with failure. You know, just be us here. We failed multiple times. Albert kind of touched upon it when we're upset with each other or things don't work out the way they do. Those moments don't define us. It's how we overcome that and how we, you know, learn from that. That's what defines us as individuals. So like Cameron was talking about, that same grad student, Tony Ciccone, I remember talking to him and just thinking to myself, man, this guy is ridiculously intelligent. There's no way in heck that I'm gonna be able to get into grad school. It's just not available to me. And he was like, dude, you should apply. You're intelligent. And for someone to tell me that, it started getting the ball rolling, you know. And that's what we make sure we do with other undergraduate students who come up to us and, you know, have questions on what they should do, how they can get into the grad program, what kind of program, you know, if we don't really have a strong aerobic background or, you know, just fitness background as far as general population stuff. So if they really want to focus on that, or like recreation, or what's the other one? Any other type of program that we don't have here, we can kind of help them get started with that. And so if you guys have any questions, you know, as grad students, we all know what it feels like to be in that situation, not knowing how to take the next steps. So one of the things I would say is get involved, number one, with anything you possibly can. You know, if you have a professor talking about some of their research, or if you know a professor who's like really into a specific type of research and you really like that type of research, or you like just learning about that kind of stuff, ask them, go to their office hours, talk to them. How can you get involved? Is there anything you can help them out with? Is there any research on campus that grad students that they can help out with? All these different things, you know, that's how people really learn in this field, is by sharing and talking with others consistently and over and over and over again. Yeah, exactly. Anyone else?
I'll go.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times people get, and this, I think this is an argument or something that people are concerned about from a perspective of a lot of practitioners. I think that they have this idea that, well, we're sort of missing something in our education. And I guess I would propose to those of you that are going to get into grad school is apply this stuff. The book knowledge only means so much. So I would recommend that you've got to fill in the gap somewhere. You've got to find an internship somewhere, and you've got to put yourself through the same workouts you would demand of anybody else to do, too. I mean, mine will probably be a lot less intense than I would ask my students to do or my athletes to do, but you got to apply stuff. There's nothing that the actual application, there's no way of replacing that.
Yeah.
So I would recommend that if you are going to learn something in class, you've got to apply it. Otherwise, it's just theoretical knowledge. It's not going to do anybody any good. So I guess fill in the gap somewhere, intern somewhere, mess up. And again, that's a big way. It's an incredible way of learning. So I recommend go find a team because everyone needs our help. I mean, there's you go to any campus or any high school campus, and there's some terrible things happening that we could probably fix, and they would welcome your help. So I would probably do something like that. Fill in the gap somewhere. Apply what you know. Otherwise, it doesn't do anybody any good.
Yeah, volunteer or whatever.
And then in addition to that, it also depends on how you can translate that.
Dang it.
So a lot of the theories that we learn here, are a little bit complex, and you have a little bit more kinesiology-specific terms. So like eccentric, concentric, muscle actions, movement quality, different things like that, force production, all the different things that a normal general population person won't really understand. And even athletes sometimes don't understand this as well. But if you can take those, big concepts and then make them easy to digest, let's say you're talking to, or we're talking about how youth sports is going to be very popular for our field in this upcoming years, is that if you can talk to an athlete's parents and just explain them what their kid's messing up on and what their kids need and what their athlete needs to improve on, that parent is going to be not only interested but completely grateful for everything that you just talked to them about. So you got to remember that athletes are our parents, their children, their brothers, their sisters. They have other people that care about them. And if you can talk and touch those people that care about them and just teach them, yeah, this is what your athlete needs, and this is how they're going to get better, this is how they're going to get stronger, then they're going to be on board. And then that's how you also kind of think outside the box. So again, like Albert said, just because you read every single book, just because you have all these certifications, but you've never trained anyone, or you've never applied it, or you've never interned at any place, and you've just been too scared to mess up, you're not going to do anything with that knowledge. You're not helping anybody. So,
Most importantly, not helping yourself.
yeah. You want to talk more about that, Phil?
No.
No. So I have you.
You have another question?
No. I don't see anything yet.
Okay.
But it's on Whitney, so go ahead, Whitney.
All right.
I mean, I don't know.
Now get in there, Phil.
Free talk.
Well, I mean, why don't we pose this question? Is there someone, have you learned something by hearing someone do the wrong thing or see someone do the wrong things? Because I know we've had some serious concerns about how we've seen, like, when I go on a track and someone's got elastic bands on a kid and they've got chutes on a kid, the parents absolutely love it. But from our perspective, it's like, it's a mess.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that kid needs to do before he's ready for any of this stuff that. So I guess I'll pose that question.
Well, I think that when it comes to like training kids in general, I've ran into the conversation a lot of when do you train them? How old are they to start lifting weights? Are they even allowed to lift weights? And last year I ran into this question and I got into a pretty heated debate. He didn't want to listen to me. He thought that his son is going to be just like a lot of other people think, right? Their son is going to be this all-star baseball player, all-star football athlete, and they think that they know what's best. They were arguing at me that children shouldn't lift at all. That they thought that my argument is that if they're going to lift super heavy. But that's not the argument, right? When children lift, you progress them. You start them super light. You want to work on movement efficiency. That's what it is. But
that's where you start most of the time. You work on, the movement efficiency. You work on proper technique, and awesome. And then you slowly start adding the weights, and even then it's still, because their bodies are still growing. And I've worked with kids where I'll work with them for 3 or 4 weeks on their squat technique, their squat pattern's looking good, and then out of nowhere, boom, growth spurt. They're like 5 inches taller in like a week and a half, and they're completely a mess. Yeah. So a lot of times it's easier just to focus on the basic movements, get them started there, so that way when something like that does happen, because they're kids and it does, then they at least have that knowledge, that background of it, where they need to fix themselves again. And then a lot of times that's all the really strength stuff they need at the time. And then you slowly start adding more weights or all that kind of stuff.
I mean, a lot of this reminds me of working with Stars Golden West volleyball team.
Yeah.
I mean, I worked with them in the weight room, and they were doing a lot of like dumbbell resisted band stuff. We weren't even having them put on any kind of plates on a barbell. You had a chance to work with a
12-year-old
athlete,
and she's doing great. I mean, just working on movement patterns, squat patterns, hip hinge. These are the things that are going to produce force. I mean, this is going to be super important for any athlete. It doesn't matter what sport you play. These are the basic movement patterns that you need to learn. And as a child, we may be teaching them basic movement patterns, but they're going to get stronger because they're getting bigger, they're getting older. Hormones are kicking in, boys or girls, it doesn't matter. They're going to get stronger as they get bigger. But the quicker we can teach them these patterns of movement and the movement efficiency, so that they can become more efficient, then the more successful they are going to be in the future. So when going back to Albert's question or comment, what should we do? What can we do as kinesiologists, as sport performance specialists, to make a difference in these young athletes' lives, or what can we do to spread this knowledge? I mean, we just need to get in there, not be afraid to teach what we know, and it's going to start with the basics. If somebody is going to argue with you, that's their opinion. We know what we know, and we're going to teach it the way we know how to teach it, and we're going to progress the way we're going to progress, because we know that's the safest way to do it. And I think that's the bottom line. Keep your athletes healthy and safe.
Yeah, I'll talk about it a little bit too, because I think we sort of overestimate what people know, in that we don't necessarily make the most compelling arguments yet. I think that's a big part of what we do, is we see some outlandish stuff. We really do. And knowing what we know, we have to make better arguments than the person who's putting that athlete through things. So, and I'm always going to, a lot of times, and I've been asked this question before, I talked to a bunch of people, but I don't care what the parent thinks, not necessarily, I don't care. What they want is to see their athlete do, or their kiddos do their own thing. But for me, I'm like, I want someone who knows to say, that guy knows what he's doing. So, and it's cool. Otherwise, I'm just a babysitter. If they just want someone to spend an hour with their kid, and I'd rather not do that. Again, I take my job seriously. I'm not. I talk to people. It's more of it's an intellectual exercise for me. I got to learn how to motivate them, athletes, and I've got to do something better. So to distinguish myself from whoever's coaching these kids, I've got to do something different. And for us, different is doing things correctly. Given the information we know, we are able to apply what we know better than most people. And ultimately, what we're doing is going to trickle down. It's going to trickle down to other people, but on a daily basis, like, I have to talk to people and say, well, have you thought about doing this? Have you considered going full range of motion? Because there's a lot of stuff that is out there available to people, and it's misinformation. So I would say that we have to make our most compelling arguments. Doing things the right way isn't necessarily the easiest thing to do sometimes, because there's a stigma against our field to begin with. So if you're going to have someone who's a a medical doctor, and someone who's a PhD, people are going to refer to the medical doctor, even though, I mean, we've read articles, and I've made my classes read articles where doctors say outlandish things, like doctors, whatever. And isn't necessarily what athletes should be doing. Absolutely not. But I think that's That's the sort of thing we have to make our most compelling arguments. We have to do the right things and not necessarily care what parents want to see their kids doing. I mean, there are people that will just take your money and that's fine because that's what they want. But again, if we make a more compelling argument, and a really compelling argument is improvement, sports improvement, performance improvement, or having their hard work expressed as improvement, I think that's as compelling as it gets. So,
I think in addition to that, Albert raises a good point on how we're the experts, and what you really want to be focusing on is throughout your classes, you're going to have a multitude of presentations that you give. Sometimes you take those presentations seriously, sometimes you try to recite it so it's verbatim and perfect every single time. But as a professional, as a strength and conditioning coach, as a personal trainer, as a cardiac rehab person, what you're going to do is...
Thanks for butchering that.
Sorry, yeah. Cardiac physiologist. There it is. You're going to be giving a presentation every time you talk to somebody. You're going to give a presentation on what you know, every type of knowledge you have, and you're going to have them either understand everything, and you'll know if they understand everything that you said, or you're going to lose them, or they're not going to care about it. And it's going to be either one of the three. And so, like, I know Albert I took his class as an undergrad. He had us do presentations on different types of techniques. So just like that, you know, as a strength conditioning coach, you're going to have, let's say you're working with a parent, and the parent's going to come over to you, why is my kid doing that way when I've seen people do squats this way? And that's a perfect time where you're going to, you know, give them, you know, these are the movement patterns of a squat. If you do it this way, X, Y, Z is going to happen. If he has some type of collapse through his knee, if he has some type of grounding through his back, X, Y, Z is going to happen. But what if now the athlete is a little bit different in size? So a lot of things that we learn here in college is, you know, if we have the perfect athlete and if we have the perfect type of individual. But when you start training people in life, nothing happens like that. Nothing is the perfect athlete. Nothing is the perfect body type. Nothing is the perfect mindset, the perfect nutrition value, or, you know, what's the one before? The perfect athlete in general. So you're going to have to learn how to adapt yourself. You're going to have to learn how to either adapt yourself to the athlete, adapt yourself to the exercise. So when I do a squat, I'm 6'2", and I have extremely long legs. 2/3 of my body is basically legs. When I do a squat, it looks a lot different than if someone else does a squat.
Like me.
Like Megan. How tall are you, Megan?
Like 5'1".
5'1", right? And she's pretty proportionate, you know, half and half, right? So our squats are going to look different, right? So like proportion-wise, you know, it's just going to look significantly different. You're going to have athletes like that. You know, if you're working with youth sports, you're going to have some athletes that know innately how to move, some athletes that have no idea what they're doing when they're out there. And it's going to be on you to how to figure it out. Okay, how am I going to make this kid move efficiently for their body type? How am I going to make this kid work as hard as they need to work? Do you have something?
no.
Rabbit?
So I would argue you would always.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Where'd that come from? I'm just kidding, that was me. No, people are always watching. I think I've always made that argument is, like, are we clicking on me now?
Always watching.
Sure. Parents, like, you're always on stage. Like, people watch, and if you're successful and your athletes are doing cool things, ultimately, initially, it's going to be like, that guy's lucky. He's so lucky to recruit these athletes and get these athletes. And then you're just constantly getting these athletes and improving them, and then it clicks. Like, yeah, this guy's more than lucky, or this woman's more than lucky. They're really developing their athletes, and it was always the coolest thing for me is where do they get these athletes? I'm like, well, I've outcoached you. The reason I'm getting these athletes is because I've developed these athletes, and that was always cool for me. Is I thought that track and field was a really true representation of what a strength coach does, because it's not about necessarily strategy. I mean, there are races that involve strategy, but if I want to make someone bigger, faster, stronger, that is really expressed in performance. So if I periodize it right and I set my program the right way, that I'm going to see a vast improvement when they need to be improved. So I always thought that, well, if I'm going to be any good at this, it's going to be, people are going to see it. And the hardest thing for me to do was set my kids up, because I'm a track coach. So when we had Orange County Championships, my kids weren't going to perform at Orange County Championships, but they were going to perform at CIF Finals and hopefully get on to the Masters. So that was my litmus test, is how much had they improved from whatever start date wherever we started, and when we did it, when they needed to perform for me. So you pick your most important dates, and I thought that was always fun for me, is how much my athletes improved. I'm going on to Megan. Boom.
Okay, so we have one more question. How important do you think it is to have connections to be where you are? All right, that's a
Who's that
question.
from?
Kashmir.
What is she doing? How come
Yeah.
she's in our clan?
Freaking important.
Yeah, I think it's very important for all of us to know people, to network, because that's basically, how, we got here, how we are able to, get jobs outside, to get opportunities, internships. It's just knowing people. So a lot of people that we network with, we go to conferences. So at the ACSM conference, NSCA conference, there's a whole bunch of professors, everyone that goes there, and then you just talk to them, tell them what you're interested in, know about what they do, and know what types of research they're doing, and then that if you just show that you're interested in their work, introduce yourself, and then just email them, and it'll get you somewhere, that contact. So it's very important to get to where you want to be.
In addition to the, are you on to say something?
Yeah, just talking to the coaches in the weight room for our school, for our athletics teams. They've stressed a few times how important it is to have connections. And Will Otto, Coach Otto, has done a lecture in Albert's class, and he got his master's degree, CSGS, USAW. Like he said, he thought he was on top of the world, and he sent out 119 applications to various schools all around the United States for a strength coach position, and he got 119 rejections, right? And he told me it's very important to network, and that's just something that you got to push, because your friends, right, people that like you, they're the ones that are going to give you the jobs. So it's very important.
And let me talk a little about this. Networking is probably the only reason I actually got into Cal State Fullerton master's program. So again, going back to what you look like on paper versus people that know you and what you're capable of. There's two different things. So on paper, as an undergraduate student, I barely met the requirements to apply for the master's program. But my work ethic and what I've shown the final couple years in my undergraduate program was completely different and didn't really reflect through what I looked like on paper. So who you know really depends. It's by far the biggest impact, that because all of us have our own networks. So if one of you undergrads or one of your friends or whoever works as one of us, like interns with us or is here or puts in a bunch of work, and we realize that, and then in the future, they're applying for a job, or they're applying for a PhD program or a master's program or a strength and conditioning position, and they put us down as a reference, chances are that somehow the place that you're applying for may know someone who is on your reference list. And that's just the web of kinesiology, whether it's research or applied, is very vast. And it just allows for people to really let you know others based on your own opinion. So it's super important.
Before we answer this last question, it's a skill. It's just important. You can't get around not knowing anybody in this field. You have to. One of the biggest things I liked when I heard a couple days ago was be friendly, be humble, be friendly to everyone, because you never know how that person is going to help you later on the road. Maybe you don't see it now immediately, right now, but in a couple weeks, in a couple months, or even when you graduate, maybe they have a position open and then think, oh, Oh wow, Megan. Megan was a really hard worker. I'd love to see if she'd love to come. You never know. One of the biggest things for me, right when I started the grad program, I reached out to Michael Massis, who was at the time the Southern California director of the NSCA conference. Reached out to him, asked him, hey, I want to volunteer. Got to know him. The following year, I talked to the next director who's in charge of it, Matt Hay. Got to know him, and my connections with the NSCA has only been growing because they know how hard I work and how much I'm willing to come volunteer to these conferences. Not only do I get to learn new skills that I get to put into my toolbox, but I get to meet a lot more people. And my goal is to meet someone new every time I go to these conferences. And it gets to the point where you go to these conferences and it's really cool to like go up to these people and say, hey, how are you doing? You go out to lunch with them and you just build these relationships. So it's super important.
Start losing viewers.
But we have one last question. She just keeps throwing all these questions at us all of a sudden. But the question is, and I'm sure everybody will get a good answer for this one. How can you all get along so well, even though you spend 24/7 with each other?
Some people are violent.
Oh, yeah.
Some people are violent.
Some people are very violent.
Just before we switch, like Dr. Brown has said, and like we've said throughout the entire podcast for this past hours, we not only are a team, we're a family. So we bicker and we fight like a family, but then we love each other like a family. So it goes both ways. We never get sick of each other. We're always helping each other out, no matter what happens. I mean, maybe some people have other things.
You get sick of each other, but we overcome it.
Yeah.
That's what some kids are for every once in a while.
Sometimes.
It's like brothers and sisters,
Yeah.
just a big family. And then, sometimes we end up getting in arguments with each other or discussions with each
Heated
other.
discussions.
And,
Heated
one thing leads to another, but I think the biggest part about it is that we're all adults, right? So we're all in the master's program or graduate from the master's program, and we all still, learn how to communicate with each other. Sometimes that requires us to spend a little bit of time away from each other and just kind of cool down and then come back in. But because we're in such close, quarters, always working in a very high stress environment, trying to get everything done and still, work together, sometimes things can be stressful. But that's life, that's how you're going to have bosses like that. You're going to have coworkers, you're going to have employees, all the above. You have probably family members that may annoy you as well. So, you just got to learn how to communicate and how to talk to them. But
That's where we work out.
yeah, that's why we work out together too.
And you can't be soft in this lab. You can't be a marshmallow. You gotta have some tough skin in this lab, just a little bit.
Yeah, no marshmallowness.
Yeah.
Teach everyone now.
I'm just saying.
Say it some more.
Say some more. Yeah.
You're on the screen, man. So keep going.
I see camera on the screen, but now I see myself. So.
No,
Yeah, you just have to. Yeah, we're in here. We joke around. That's one way we get around.
Look at the people.
Yeah, we joke around. We have fun. We argue sometimes.
Oh, okay.
Hands get thrown. People get feelings hurt. But at the end of the day, we come back together a couple weeks later, a couple days later,
Flowers.
a couple hours after we unwind because school is stressful. But anyway, it's time to wrap this up. Oh, no, it's not. It's time to keep it going. All right, so.
No, wrap it up.
Phil. Phil. Brian.
Well,
Sorry.
I'm not here ever anymore, so.
But you're still here.
But I'm still here. It's okay, yeah, it brings it back to the whole family.
Family.
Come out, hang out with the family.
Yeah. One last thing, I guess, would be professionalism. Professionalism amongst your friends, your family. Just be respectful. We joke around, we have a good time, and that's
Sometimes we joke around and we don't have a good time.
But we're respectful enough to work out our differences when we need to. And I don't know. We get.
it just works.
It works.
Just works.
Yeah,
We're
we're
really
very
good group,
cohesive,
yeah.
cohesive with each other.
For people that are so dysfunctional, we're pretty functional.
Yeah. Especially when it comes to getting down to business with work and
Yeah.
research.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're mad at somebody. You
Okay.
help because we're family.
Yeah.
We represent the lab. We represent the school. Represent our advisor.
Yeah, I think
So-
that's
All
important.
right.
All right, that's it.
Well, now that you've heard us for an hour, we're out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Until next second shift.
Yeah.
Second shift.
Third.
Out.
Second